Chapter 13 of Theologico-Political Treatise by Baruch Spinoza. In this chapter, he tells us, he explains something that I found to be very interesting, and that is, he tries to illustrate to us why the Bible is simple. The Bible is not complex. And it's not only illustrating, but in this chapter is like he's giving us an opposite message to the message we receive from other philosophers, in particular Maimonides, because Maimonides is kind of like is telling us how the Bible is complex and has these hidden messages, profound mysteries. But Baruch says, no, the Bible doesn't have any profound mysteries hidden. The Bible is very simple. And in fact, in another video, I have told you that he's told us some people think the Bible has profound mysteries because of the errors that exist in the Bible. But he tells us that those are just errors we need to acknowledge that are errors. But in this chapter, it tells us the Bible is very simple. The Bible is not complex. And he says the Bible teaches truths which can readily be comprehended by all. That's what the Bible does. And in fact, what that basically is the divine law. Love your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's all it teaches through from end to end when it is simplified and we remove every other noise that's around the message. That's the message, that the core message that remains. That's according to Baruch Spinoza. And he says the difficulty of understanding scripture lies in the language only and not the brassness of the argument. He says if you read the Bible and you find yourself struggling to understand it, it's not that there is some hidden messages or profound mystic whatever. What is happening is just that there is difficulty in comprehending the language, and that could be on your side, but it could also be that the writers wrote in a language that is difficult for you to comprehend, or they were not so clear in their own mind when they were writing these messages, so they did not come out very clear, so it's just a matter of misunderstanding, really. That's Baruch Spinoza's argument. And he says one of the reasons why we need to acknowledge that the Bible is very simple is because the prophets and apostles did not preach only to the learned, but to all. During that time, if the prophet was speaking to people, they were speaking to the public. They were not speaking to people in colleges or universities. These messages were meant for people on the street, ordinary people. So why should you expect that they had to bring messages that were so complex that need scholars for people to understand these messages? Baruch argues that these messages were very simple and they were meant for very simple people. And he says scriptural doctrine contains no lofty speculations, no philosophic reasoning, but only very simple matters, such as could be understood by the slowest intelligence. So his argument is there's nothing complex about the scripture because it was written for people the lowest people in society. That message was meant that they could get it, understand it quick. So, and he says the scripture does not aim at him. Another argument makes it that the scripture does not aim to impart scientific knowledge, and therefore it demands from men nothing but obedience and censures obstinacy but not ignorance. And in fact, he says the object of the Bible is to make men. The object of the Bible is not to make men learned but obedient. So when you take this, so he says the Bible was not written to impart some scientific knowledge. So we shouldn't be trying to have these philosophers and scientists try to make it make sense, because the people who wrote it, that's not the people they wrote for. They just wrote for the ordinary people. And I think what he's trying also to say here is that if there are things that don't make sense, we should just accept them like that. If there are errors, we accept them like that. That's a theme that is throughout his book. And in fact, that's a place where he disagrees with Maimonides, who is like, okay, if there's something that does not make sense, then it means there's something hidden that maybe we need some philosophers or some theologians to come and make it clear for us. But Baruch's position is that the Bible is very simple and it was written for very simple people, ordinary people. And if it was the ordinary people to understand it, the way the ordinary people understands it, that's the way it is. There's nothing more to it. And of course, he makes this argument of the Bible was not meant to make people learned. Like if it was meant to make people learned, then it will have this scientific whatever. It was just meant to make people obedient. The Old Testament, people obedient to the Commonwealth, the state, and to God, of course. And in the New Testament, obedient to God and, of course, the state, because let's acknowledge that even in the New Testament, there was a state that pushed Christianity to a large extent. And so the state also used it for its own reasons. He says, but if every expression of this kind in the Bible is necessarily to be interpreted and understood metaphorically, scripture must have been written not for the people of the unlearned masses, but chiefly for the... So he says, in fact, he's elaborating this paragraph. I picked it from where he was elaborating that there are people who make those arguments that, okay, if the Bible does not make sense here, then it means there must be some more knowledgeable people who should come and help the ordinary people understand it. But as I've said, Baruch's opinion is that the Bible is very simple. It's not imparting any scientific knowledge. It's not meant to make people learned. It's meant to make people obedient. The message there is the message meant for the ordinary people.